What is up, my stay-at-home stallions? Yeah, stay-at-home stallions. I stand by it. I don't even care what you think. Anyways, what we've got going on today. Today is Wednesday. What day is it? I never remember. The 15th. And what we've done up until this point is we have talked about railroads, how they impacted business, how they impacted the distribution, ooh, don't do that, of people. And now what we're going to talk about is the impact of the Transcontinental Railroad finishing. So, before we start our quick check, it's not a discussion today. What you're going to be asked to do is do a map quick check. Please stay focused. Please take your time. One of the biggest issues that we have in our STAR tests for 8th graders in history is their map skills. So make sure you're reading the map carefully and make sure that you are answering those questions carefully. So no discussion question today. Good for you. What I'd like to do is go over this. Yay, more maps. Woohoo! The Transcontinental Railroad. First thing I want to show you is this image. And as we read this map, obviously, guys, over here on the left is the key. It gives us all the information that we're going to need. The very first thing I want you to look at here is all of these lines in gray. All of these railroads, these lines in gray, represent existing rail lines. Okay, they had been built throughout the colonial era and also into the Civil War era, into the Reconstructive era. Basically, they destroyed and rebuilt. This is what the country at this moment had. But there was this great idea to kind of bridge the divide, connect the Atlantic Ocean and the Atlantic. Sorry, this is like mirrored. The Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean, and the benefits were great. So I want you to take a look at this, and I'm going to show you and like the impact of having this one transatlantic railroad. But before I show you what it looks like, there's two companies that finished up our railroad from the western border of Iowa, where Omaha is, in the eastern border of Nebraska, all the way to the Golden Spike. This was the Union Pacific Company that completed this red stretch, and the Central Pacific Company completed the blue stretch from Sacramento to Promontory Summit. Now, looks a little bit different. Transcontinental Railroads of Canada and the United States. So this main line, you can see me following it here, was completed in 1869. And look at all of the offshoots, all of the other rails that were laid that connect. You've got some in 1905, 1883. You've got people in northern areas, maybe Portland, built and connected here in 1925. And then looking at Texas, this is for you, Clean. You ready? Right here in 1870 in Fort Worth was this main stretch that went up and met in Cheyenne. So basically the railway was constructed to go from east to west, from Atlantic to Pacific. I don't care if it's mirrored, you can figure it out. I can't. And basically come up with an opportunity for goods, materials, opportunists, people traveling west to move. And then after that, all of these other lines connected in kind of like this web. So we're very efficient at moving our goods and basically be more efficient. So that railway was used for many, many different reasons. Right here, Salt Lake City is close, but what we've got here is, let me go back here, right here, Promontory Summit. This is where the Union Pacific Company and the Central Pacific Company met and put in the last spike. It's called the Golden Spike. I have a 3.5-minute video for you. It's a father and daughter's journey called The Last Spike, a trip to Golden Spike National Historic Site. Go ahead and take a look and listen.
The Golden Spike was something that I'd always heard about in Utah. The two railroads came together at Promontory. 2019 is the 150th anniversary of the Golden Spike, and so we thought it would be really cool to make this trip from Salt Lake to Promontory to see the reenactment and to find out more about the Golden Spike and the Transcontinental Railroad. So we thought it'd be neat to leave our house in Salt Lake City along with a bike and take this trip using a train. Get on Front Runner, take Front Runner up as far as we could go, then get on a bus and ride our bikes out to Promontory. It's just really neat understanding, the whole aspect of trains and our history. We've been building a lot of train lines lately, and so we're almost rediscovering the rail here in Utah. When you come into Ogden on the train, you realize that that's really how you're meant to come into Ogden. Come into that huge rail yard across the Weber River, the Ogden Union Station and 25th Street, and you see the wall of Mount Ogden behind it, and you're like, oh, this is how you're supposed to arrive in Ogden. So then when we went into the train museum, it gave us a different perspective on that whole history there. With the bikes, it allowed us to explore Bear River Valley in a lot more detail and just slow things down a little bit. Allowed us to poke into places that we might not otherwise have stopped at. When you're traveling with an 8-year-old, you want to make sure that your days aren't too long. Crystal Hot Springs is a really cool place. It's been visited as a hot springs by people in Utah really ever since the time of the Golden Spike. Found ourselves on the shore of the Great Salt Lake on the playa. It was right along the railroad grade from, the Southern Pacific, and so we could see a lot of those ruins. It was a really cool experience to camp out on the playa like that. When we finally got to Promontory, there's that last steep hill that we went up, and so we really understood what the railroads were up against, making that last push up the hill to Promontory Summit. So you see these black and white photos, and it just doesn't do justice to how colorful the train engines are. You had all these people from San Francisco and other big cities literally in the middle of nowhere with these colorful railroad engines. It just really brought it to life.
The driving of the last spike is at hand. At this point, we wish to commend both railroad companies and their workers.
So it's always fun to have people that come out here and they may not know why they're out here. They see the reenactment, they see the locomotives, they get an idea of the history, and then to actually realize why this is such an important part in our nation's history.
This was something that captivated everybody, that the whole country was watching Utah, waiting for this moment when the last spike would be driven in.
All right, very good. So thank you for watching that. Gives some good perspective as to how those two companies joined together. And I like that last thing that he said the entire time. The country was captivated by this. This is a new kind of thing. That expanse, that railroad had never been that large before, and the benefits from having that railroad were obviously seen thereafter. The very last thing I want you guys to take a look at, what about these Chinese immigrants? Not a lot of people know that a large portion of the Transcontinental Railroad was actually built on the labor of immigrants, so on the back of labor of immigrants. So I'm only going to read the first 2 paragraphs, and I will link this in, but this gives some good perspective in how the Chinese were a massive help in completing this project. So take a listen and look for the link if you want to read the rest. This is called A Legacy from the Far East. Here's a picture, and your caption says, Chinese workers use dump carts to build a fill across a ravine while building the Transcontinental Railroad. The trestle bridge that parallels their work would be replaced by the fill that was more durable and easier to maintain. This stuff down here being the fill. So, the Transcontinental Railroad was built by many thousands of workers from a variety of ethnic and cultural backgrounds, which created a blend of people that continues to define the nation to this day. One of the groups that literally took on the brunt of the work were the Chinese laborers. Most of the Chinese workers, who numbered over 11,000 by the end of the project, were employed by the Central Pacific Railroad building out of Sacramento, California. The Central Pacific Railroad. That would be here, guys, in blue, from Sacramento to the east, to that golden spike where those two companies met, the Central Pacific Railroad. The use of Chinese laborers started as an experiment. 50 workers were initially hired despite 19th century stereotypes about their stamina, strength, and other traits that some thought would prevent them from completing the demanding 10 to 12-hour shifts of hard labor during a 6-day work week. The man responsible for the experiment was Charles Crocker, chief railroad contractor for the Central Pacific, who believed that the Chinese workers would be the answer to the labor problems the company faced. Many of the Central Pacific workers already employed by Crocker were leaving their jobs with the railroad to try their luck in gold and the silver rush. Labor unrest and strikes often arose in workers' camps, which caused more headaches for the owners and construction bosses. Crocker's experiment proved successful in several ways. My bad, I wanted to do 3 instead of 2. Take a look and listen. The Chinese labor force easily dispelled the doubts of others by performing the tasks they were given at a good pace and with exceptional quality workmanship. In fact, a crew consisting mainly of Chinese workers were eventually able to complete the task of laying 10 miles of track in 1 day, which is I'm so sorry. I don't know why I didn't do full screen. That's my bad. You guys are probably all distracted. 10 miles a day, which is a record that still stands to this day. The Chinese workers were paid a lower rate than the other native European workers, while often completing higher quality work and being more dependable. So, make sure you guys do your map check. Make sure you guys are thinking about the importance of that Transcontinental Railroad, and make sure, guys, that you guys understand the importance of immigrant laborers and all that they do for our country. Remember, it was the citizens who didn't want to work. It was a large portion of those citizens who wanted to leave the tough work day, the 10 to 12 hours. They wanted to leave the back-breaking work, and they wanted to go into San Francisco during the gold and silver rush and make it big. So thankfully, we had European and especially Chinese foreign laborers to help complete this great project. Guys, gals, my stay-at-home stallions, and I don't care what you say, I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day. It's hump day. Stay inside. Stay safe. Stay safe.